Hi, my name is Jennifer Timmer and I'm a biologist with Bird Conservancy of the Rockies. In this short video, I will go over an important step from data exploration on the Rocky Mountain Avian Data Center. Specifically, I'll help interpret the output after you've queried the database. If you haven't already, be sure to listen to the short introduction video on the Avian Data Center and the second video on how to use filter selection to pull data from the database. I'll be going over each output tab on the Avian Data Center after you've run a query. For this first example, I was interested in brewer sparrow estimates produced through the IMBCR monitoring program on all BLM lands in Wyoming. So I used the species filter to select brewer sparrow and the superstratum filter to select Wyoming BLM lands, and then I selected IMBCR for the study design. Once we click Run Query, you can see the first output that shows is this map view. It's a Google map based, and all of these blue circles represent the 1 square kilometer grids that were surveyed on Wyoming BLM lands, and these pink dots represent where a brewer sparrow was detected. So if we click on any of these grids, but let's click on this one here in the center of the state, you can see the name of the grid, WY BCR10CA, and that stands for Wyoming Bird Conservation Region 10, and CA is Casper Field Office. And you can see that it was surveyed in 2016, 2017, and 2018. You can see that we detected 61 brewer sparrows in June 2016 and 54 in June 2017. Let's click out of that and go back up towards the top, and let's click on the occupancy tab and look at the occupancy results. So we have a row for each year of data for Wyoming BLM lands, so 2010 to 2017. And if you hover over each of the column headers, you'll see a brief explanation of what it means. So transects is just the number of transects or grids where we had at least one detection of a brewer sparrow. Psi is our occupancy probability, so it's the estimated proportion of 1 square kilometer grids that are occupied. And if we have a psi of 1, that means that a brewer sparrow was detected on all grids that were surveyed. We have a couple estimates for precision and variability. So standard error is just the sample standard deviation, and you can use that to find 95% confidence limits. So you could multiply each standard error estimate by 1.96 and then add or subtract it from the psi point estimate. And what you can do then is look and see if psi estimates or if occupancy estimates among the different years, if their confidence intervals overlap. And if the confidence intervals don't overlap from year to year, you could infer that the estimates are statistically different from one year to the next. You could also do this if you were comparing estimates for a different strata. CV is our percent coefficient of variation, and so that's kind of like in golf where you want a low score. Lower is better. So a general rule to apply, and the CV is just the ratio of the standard deviation to the mean. And so if you have a lower score, that just means that you have less variability in the data, so you're more certain of your estimate. So a general rule to apply is that estimates with a CV greater than 100% are unreliable, whereas CVs less than 50% are reasonable. A good CV, meaning you have a robust estimate, should be, say, 20 to 30%, however. You can also use this copy to clipboard feature if you want to copy information in the table to Excel. And you can then, if you want to do any other manipulations with the data, or if you want to create a graph or figure in Excel, or maybe save it as a text file and import it into R and use R's graphing options. But we have here on the right our graphing option, and it just has each point estimate plotted from 2010 to 2017 for occupancy. You can see we have the psi estimate for 2010, then we also have plotted one standard error above and below that estimate. So now if we click on the density tab, you're going to see similar output to the occupancy in that we have a row for each year that data were collected. So 2009 to 2017. And again, if you hover over each of the column headers, you'll see a brief explanation. So D is just our density estimate, so birds or brewer sparrows per square kilometer. N is our estimated population size. So we just took our density estimate and multiplied it by the area in that particular stratum, the area for BLM lands in Wyoming. we have our percent CV, so that coefficient of variation, and you can see that all these estimates are pretty low. So that means we have a little bit more faith or a little bit more certainty in our density estimate for each year. N is just the number of detections that were used in analyses. Because we use distance sampling, we tend to truncate the outer distances, so distances that are maybe greater than 200 or 250 meters from the point. And again, in the figure on the right, you can see each density estimate plotted for each year, as well as one standard error above and below it. If you click on the species count tab, you'll see on the left here the total number of brewer sparrows that were detected each year for Wyoming BLM lands. So we had 684 detections in 2009, all the way up to over 1,000 in 2017. And on the right, we have our sampling effort, or our number of surveyed points for each year. And again, you can copy either of these tables to clipboard, and if you want to paste them into Excel. So that was a pretty straightforward example, but I want to just show something slightly different. Let's say you're interested in brewer sparrow estimates, but for all of the strata in Wyoming within the INBCR study design. So for that, again, you'd select your species filter and brewer sparrow for the species, and then you'd select Wyoming under state filter, and again, INBCR for the study design. And so I already ran this query. And again, you can see a similar map view that shows up. So these are all of the 1 square kilometer grids that were surveyed in the state of Wyoming. And again, the pink dots represent where a brewer sparrow was detected within that grid. So if we now click on our occupancy tab, you can see a few different things here. Now we have, for the state of Wyoming, we have each stratum displayed for each year in which it was surveyed. So we start out with Bridger-Teton National Forest from 2010 to 2017, followed by Medicine Bow National Forest from 2010 to 2017, and so on for all the different strata or areas of interest to our funding partners in Wyoming. You can also see that the graph doesn't generate automatically. That's just because we have so many strata that are included within the state of Wyoming that it's just going to look really busy. But let's generate the plot anyways. And now you can see all the pretty colors. So each of these colors just corresponds to the different strata. So like Bridger-Teton National Forest is in bright red, Medicine Bow National Forest is in bright green. And if you want to try to declutter that figure a little bit, you can click on several strata here. Just click on this far right on the row. You'll just kind of start to unselect some of these strata. We probably have to unselect a lot to declutter this plot, but just to show you what you can do. And similarly, if we click on our density tab, you're also going to see a lot of different estimates for all the strata within Wyoming. And now if we click on our species counts tab, you'll see total number of brewer sparrow detections for each year, as well as the number of points that were surveyed there on the right. But now let's look at our counts by. You see this option up here. So let's maybe look at counts by management entity and refresh those counts and efforts. So now you're going to see the total number of brewer sparrow detections by management entity for each year. So start out with BLM all the way down to the Department of Defense. And you can see the number of points that were surveyed for each of those. So it looks like in Wyoming, we surveyed quite a bit on BLM lands, quite a bit on Forest Service, and these all other lands, which often are private lands. You can also do counts by stratum. So this is now going to show you, again, all the different strata within the state of Wyoming and the number of brewer sparrow detections for each of those strata, and the number of surveyed points as well for each of those strata. So this is just to highlight the complexity that goes into stratifying a state. It's not very simple or straightforward because you have a lot of different partners, you have a lot of different agencies and entities who want estimates for species, based on certain elevation or based on management unit or things like that. So that's all for today, for going over some of the output for estimates and results from the Avian Data Center, but stay tuned for our next video where we'll go over some more advanced features on the Avian Data Center.